You have an early pick in your fantasy draft. Christian McCaffrey's on the board. Where are you taking him? Today we're going to be discussing and guiding you guys on where to take Christian McCaffrey in your fantasy draft. We'll see you guys later. Sports content, Bay Buccaneers, Ali Marpet.
I'm doing well.
I'm someone that knows the game pretty well.
Drafted third overall by the Boston Celtics.
So, Christian McCaffrey, obviously monstrous season last year. He one of the best things I've seen out of running back, not only receiving but also rushing 1,387 yards, which was the third best out of running backs. 19 touchdowns, best most amount of touchdowns from a running back last year, and the top running back in terms of fantasy points. I didn't have him on my team last year, and I promise you, he was a absolute pain to play against. Scoring like 30 points a game. And as well, I said this in our Saquon Barkley video, we're kind of basing these picks off if you're in around a 10-player PPR league. But I feel like Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey, as I said in the last video, these are both players that are going to be taking one or two. So these kind of for any league, I guess you could say. But, he was absolutely insane last year. And I think part of that is because of his receiving. He is, in my opinion, the best receiving. No, he's one of the best receiving backs in the league, easily. In fantasy, if you guys aren't big on that, as a running back, you can get an insane amount of points just off rushing touchdowns. But the amount of points you can gain from catching for receiving yards, lots of receiving yards, like 50, 60, 70 receiving yards a game, maybe even 100, and then a receiving touchdown. The magnitude of points that gains for your team is actually insane. Christian McCaffrey last year was getting a rushing touchdown, 100 rushing yards, and like 70 receiving yards, and a receiving touchdown, and possibly more, possibly less. So as a fantasy owner, that's so good for your team. That's giving you the most points, double most of your players on your team, and Christian McCaffrey just simply was the best running back. I think it's not really doubtable, but let's go to where you should take him. So if you haven't seen our Saquon Barkley video, I have taking Saquon number 1. So go watch that if you haven't. But McCaffrey, I think, if you have picked number 1, it's not a mistake if you take McCaffrey number 1, but I think he could definitely drop to number 2. So I would have him getting picked at number 2 here. But I think, taking him at number 1, I think it depends. If you're not a risky person, taking McCaffrey at number 1, is not a terrible. It's not a bad choice. It's a smart choice. The only reason I have Saquon higher is because I think he has a bigger upside in terms of, if he pays off and isn't injured. And then think about it. The Carolina Panthers don't have a great offensive line. Their quarterback, Kyle Allen, obviously wasn't the quarterback they wanted to play last year. As Cam Newton was not playing last year. And so I think a big reason on why McCaffrey was so good last year is because of because they didn't want Kyle Allen to be throwing the ball as much. So they were giving a lot of handoffs to McCaffrey and trusting him to carry that offense, which he did. And then also throwing the ball to McCaffrey, those check down passes Kyle Allen was throwing to the side when, McCaffrey was open, and then him just crunching out yards. So the only problem I have here is, so last year they had their receiving core, they have DJ Moore, and he was really, really good at the end of the season last year. I think I was in a smaller league, so I think he wasn't even drafted, and then was picked up and, was really, really good. He was, Kyle Allen started to throw the ball more, and DJ Moore was that, was on the end of that and was receiving at a really, really good rate. I think he's one of the top receivers at the end of the fantasy season. And so now going into this year, this is my problem with McCaffrey. Now you have Teddy Bridgewater, which is an experienced quarterback. He's played with the Vikings and was on the Saints last year and played, a good amount of the games since Drew Brees was injured, and actually played very well. And he's a quarterback that, they're going to trust to throw the ball more now that Kyle Allen isn't going to be the starter. So, DJ Moore now again is going into another season. So, he's more developed. He's going to be more trusted. Teddy Bridgewater is going to work with him over the offseason. So I feel like that passing or that giving the ball to McCaffrey is still going to be high, but not as high as last year. So he's not going to be getting as many touches, I'm predicting, and they're going to be throwing the ball more to DJ Moore. I have DJ Moore being the Chris Godwin of next year. I think he's going to be really good. That might be a hot take, but I think he's going to be really, really good next year. And so I think Teddy Bridgewater is going to gain a relationship with him and start to throw the ball to him. Teddy Bridgewater is a very check down player, short passes, as he did last year with Michael Thomas. That's why that team was so good, because Michael Thomas is the best, slant short receiver in the league. And so that, was why Teddy Bridgewater and him were complemented each other so well. And now, pairing up with DJ Moore is just, I think it's recipe for success. And then McCaffrey is obviously going to be getting, touches and getting passes, but I think it's not going to be at the rate that people want him to. That was Christian McCaffrey. What do you guys think? That was kind of my predictions. I haven't been playing fantasy for too long, so if I have any mistakes, please let me know in the comments. Obviously, if you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe, and we will be, we always respond to comments, so if you have anything to say, make sure you do, and we'll see you guys in the next one.